someone asked me what is the role of the university, obviously is to educate, is to create ideas that drive other things, but in the end, it's about creating jobs. And I want to be very clear. If someone said, "What is your number one priority?" It's about to create possibilities and to create jobs. And I think that we're going to do that very, very well. And so I was very encouraged. The governor was very encouraging. I had a long conversation with him prior to my joining the institution, and I also think that West Virginia itself has made tremendous strides. It has moved from the bottom 40s in terms of state relations regarding business climate or variety of other things to into the mid 20s now. And that, and that's astonishing. It really is, because of the fact that is a dramatic difference in kind of attitude and direction. We were at the business roundtable yesterday and saw and heard some of the activities going on and saw the kind of infrastructure development and attractiveness that's occurring. Morgantown is not only a great college town, but it also has become a very attractive place for young people to come and carry on their creative energy. So West Virginia is in a different place, and the university needs to be central to that. Ohio State was a great institution in Ohio, and West Virginia university has the very same characteristics. It's a land-grant institution. It's the major research institution. And so there are very few of these kinds of institutions. And so I'm happy to be here.
You got off on a humorous start, which I thought was a brave move because you're familiar with your own history.
Right.
But
no one's more familiar with it than I
am. But was that must have been a sort of splash that you wanted to make with the top 10 list?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we were just talking about that this morning. In fact, Sharon and John and others, we talked about it. I think that I always tell everyone the three characteristics to be successful as university president are: one, have a very thick skin. I think without that, you just will not survive. Two is to have nerves like sewer pipes. Because everyone knows how to run the university better than you do. So I always tell you about it. You and I are in the same position because of the fact that newspapers are the most kindred spirits to universities of anything that I know. You have very bright people called reporters. They're very independent. They know more than you do, and at least they tell you that they do, and a variety of other things. And so therefore, you have this kind of yin and yang that goes on. And so you have to have you have to really have nerves of steel, if you will. And then the final thing, and I think the most important ingredient for being successful in leadership, particularly in university, is to have a great sense of humor. You will not survive. And my sense of humor is well known. Mm-hmm. It is my greatest strength. It also has, on times, been my greatest challenge. And but I like being who I am, and blessings on this board that they appreciate and value the opportunities that I'll have and that we can have together. But the answer was yes. I think when you run a big institution, you want to make it very personal. Because you have to make tough decisions. These are tough times, and if people feel that you know them, you care about them, that you want to be engaged with them, it's a lot easier to be a decision maker than it is if you are isolated, arrogant, and in an office in which you carry on telephone conversations. So I do believe in being tomorrow evening and Saturday evening, I'm going to, I'm well known for going out to student parties and a variety of other things. And as you know, I mean, it's one of the things I've discovered, though, as I've gotten older, is the fact that students also have a different rhythm, and that is the fact that they're, I used to show up to the student events at 8 o'clock at night. There was me and the band. The band was just setting up. So now I go home, take a power nap, and it's 11 o'clock. Get out there. That's when things start. But so it'll be a surprise when they see me. And I come in and they start talking about physics and music, but nonetheless, it's great. And, I look forward to that.
I can't imagine being a student at 11:30 or midnight at a party somewhere, and then the president shows up.
Yeah, well, some of the parents can't imagine too.
Yeah.
They said, "I got no prepared." This is a very funny one I got about a year ago. And she said, "Dr. Gee," she said, "I just saw a picture of you with my daughter at 1:30 in the morning. You got to stop keeping her out so late." so.
You mentioned West Virginia University is an economic generator,
right.
And you think of Morgantown and its growth, but How far does that influence extend geographically?
Well, it has to extend all 55 counties. First of all, the interesting thing, the calling of the university is that. I use the example, and Sharon, I can use Indiana, but think of Michigan and Michigan State. Think of Indiana, Purdue. Most states have a land grant university and a major research university. West Virginia is among those unique small numbers in which you are both the major research university and the land grant university. And the land grant mission is the calling to make certain that every citizen of the state is connected to the university and to opportunities that exist. And so we're in 55 counties through our extension programs, but now our engagement, we just have hired a new person to really engage in this whole notion of outreach and engagement that goes beyond agriculture, so to speak, the kind of traditional agricultural mechanical arts issue, to thinking about economic development and cultural and social opportunities. And I personally intend on getting very engaged in being around the state and trying to understand sort of the issues that the university can be important on. I'm actually thinking, I haven't even talked to our chairman yet, and this is not an announcement, but I've actually been thinking about how do we commission a relook at the role of the university in the state, sort of what I'd call West Virginia Rising. How does the university really partner with the state in ways that we haven't done up to this point?
You've used that word engagement a few times, and I've heard that word elsewhere. Is that a word that you would have used 30 years ago, or a mindset?
No, it's a word that I didn't even think about 30 years ago. It's funny because it's really an interesting question. That word came in a conversation that I was having with a guy by the name of Dick Stoddard, who was my team member. I chaired the Kellogg Commission on the future of the land grant university. It's a big commission, and we were trying to, and we were at the O'Hare Airport trying to think of how do we make this commission more meaningful? Okay, so there's the traditional land grant notion of agricultural mechanical arts, but what is the role of the land grant institution? And we came up with this notion of the engaged university. And we wrote a whole report about 13, 14 years ago. You can take a look at it, and that was really the central theme. And out of there, we recommended that the land grant institutions move into a much broader role of engaging communities. You think about it. I mean, I can get a little, I can get waxy more than I probably should on this issue, but I've often thought about Abraham Lincoln. We're celebrating 150 years of the Morrill Act, the Land Grant Act, and Lincoln, at the height of the Civil War, when he should have been moving out of Washington because the North was losing, instead, that young guy by the name of Justin Morrill came in, and they thought of this idea of these land grant universities. And I wasn't there when the conversation took place, obviously, but the conversation went like this. Mr. President, it's not simply about race. It's about opportunities for everyone to be able to catch the American dream. And that's what it was about. I mean, so in some way, and this is my clear view. I think that the land grant model of 1862 is the new American university model for 2014. That notion of moving out of the ivory tower into, the symbol of the university being the ivory tower has to change to being the helping hand. And the land grant institution really needs to be that.
So how does the fact that the WVU is like a major research institution change or complicate what you're doing as a land grant institution?
I think it complements.
Okay.
But see, that's a great question. Because the issue is that what you want to do is you don't want to say that it's either research or applied. What you've got to say is that you have your basic research, you create ideas, and then you take them into the marketplace, then you take them into the communities, then you take them into the schools and the cultural centers. And that notion of connectivity has been lost among so many institutions, and even among land grant institutions, unfortunately. I think that land grant institutions have become, in many ways, they're sterile. They have, they keep their extension programs, which are still powerful. They keep them separate from the valued nature of the institution. We run one of the larger healthcare programs in the country, in particular in terms of rural healthcare. that is in the best of the land grant tradition, but we need to make it that way too. We need to have it as an understanding. When I became president in 1981, it was called something like West Virginia Cooperative Extension. There was no relationship whatsoever between. No one knew that the university was West Virginia Cooperative Extension, so we changed the name, made everyone start wearing gold and blue, and answer West Virginia University Cooperative Extension. Just that connection was important. Now we need to increase that connection all across the variances of the institute. Take a look, for example, at the whole issue of the Marcellus Shale. There are some real issues in terms of environmental impact. Moving into this horizontal drilling, universities have, and this institution has particular expertise to make sure that it's done right and well, and it's very economically feasible. Those are the kinds of things that are really kind of part of the land grant mission now.
Mm-hmm. You're striking me as very knowledgeable about your workplace that you've been at for 4 days. Did you have to sort of do a crash course in refamiliarizing yourself?
I did, absolutely. I did. I got a bunch of briefing papers and have read just vigorously about everything. But I would also say this very honestly. I've always, so many of the folks at West Virginia University have maintained a strong relationship with David Hardesty, the former president, Jim Clements, who is the president now. He and I would talk frequently. Peter McGraw, who was president for a short period of time, Gene Budick. We're kind of a gang of 5 or 6. And interesting enough, all of us have kind of been very interested in West Virginia as a place that we all call home.
But here you are, a very esteemed person who's got an incredible academic resume, and now you're the new president of West Virginia University, and I'm not interim president. I'm hearing a guy that sounds like he's willing to be there for another 10, 15, 20 years.
Oh, let me tell you something. I won't live that long. I made a commitment to come in and be and when the board and I talked about this, I said I don't want to be an interim. I want to, because I don't want to act. I want to be, and I think that they wanted that to be. I think that so I'm the president for a term. I hope whatever that is. But I don't want to be. I want to give it every ounce of my energy and my commitment. I have so many other things. I've got this major project, the Gates Foundation, that I've got going. I've got a major project in Ohio in which there's a reformation of higher education. I have a long-term commitment to teach at Harvard. I've got a whole host of different things going on. So this was not disruptive. It was an honor. But I've been a university president for half my life. And I discovered that I could have a midlife crisis at age 60, whatever, and do some other things. And very honestly, if it had been University of X, Y, or Z, I would not have done it. West Virginia, and I want to be very clear about this. This is not soapy, sappy, or anything. West Virginia has a place in my heart, and the opportunity was there. And I said that to the chairman.
He sure did. He truly did.
How do these things work? We were hearing sort of rumors and rumblings the day before you were actually named that it was you. And so and you obviously have a long-term relationship with the university. Do feelers go out? Does somebody call you and say, hey, we need somebody? You'd be good. Or do you let it be known? Like, I wouldn't mind that.
It's kind of a kabuki dance.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I think that, obviously, and you'd have to ask the chairman, and that's the reason he's here, but he did give me a call and asked if I might be interested, and I said that I was in the middle of doing a lot of other things, and so we had a conversation about it, and then he's a very persuasive guy. I think that's the best way. He's a charming and persuasive guy, and I've already grown to love him dearly.
So was it your idea to bring Gordon Gee back?
It was along with several other board members. I mean, we went over lots of names, and I mentioned Gordon, and I thought, what would hurt to call? And he reflected it very well. I called and he said, "Gee whiz, I'm awfully busy, but I'll give you some consideration and think about that." I called again, and we had marvelous conversations, at least 4 of them, before we finally were able to. Before I was then able to say, the board really would like for you to return to West Virginia and be our president. And we totally agreed with Gordon. We did not want the idea of interim to enter the picture, because we wanted him to be the president. We wanted to be active and on the ground with all the things that had to be done to make sure that we continued to proceed in the fashion with which we were directed. And
Does the arrangement? My understanding is it doesn't allow for you to be considered for
I think that's
what's
right.
beyond, but
well, the arrangement is not for him to be able to apply.
okay.
Any applicants during the process, we made it very clear starting the whole search process that anyone who came in to serve as president would have the clear understanding that they were not then interested in applying for the permanent job.
Mhm. Could that be reconsidered in the end?
Well,
Hey,
Well,
you know
there's
what?
no-
You know who would be best for this?
That would obviously be a decision based upon what his needs and wants would be, and
Okay.
what our needs and wants would be. But certainly, I think that would certainly impact the whole search process. We don't want to diminish that possibility. So obviously that was put out there simply because it was the right thing to do. And you couldn't expect not only Gordon but any of the other people that were being considered to step into his position, be a president, and then not have the ability to apply later, because we would lose some potential candidates of real quality should that information be available.
Who would you pick? I mean, should states go within the institution or within the state, or?
You know, one of the nice things about my position is the fact that I don't have to make that
Well, I'm
decision.
asking you.
Oh,
You're the pro, I will.
Well, you know, the chairman and I have talked a lot about it, and you know, they have a very good process in place. They've selected a very heady committee. He's chairing it. I think that this is an enormously attractive job. I think that it's an opportunity to continue to reposition the institution with the right kind of leadership. Beyond that, you know, I joke about the fact that I've been president of half the universities in this country. I also, there's a reality that a lot of the people that I think would potentially be strong candidates, I know very well. And so that's one of the kinds of things that we're talking through right now. But I don't have a name, and even if I did, I would.
I'm not talking about what kind of
I figured out.
What does it take to be a college president?
Oh, I you know, I just described it. I think you know, I think you have to. I think you have to have a level of ability to be able to be a pinata, and at the same time, I think it's very important to be an academic leader. You know, one of the things that hey, I want everyone to know that.
You were just talking there.
Did you script that?
You know, thank goodness you didn't call it "Hang on, Sleepy" on that phone.
That is not Hang On Sleeper, the Buckeye Battle Cry. So, thank you very much, Sharon. That was very nice. Thank you. So, that's priceless. I think, but this is a great question because I think in a large complex university like West Virginia, and this is a very complex institution. You know, I was part of the largest, most complex university in the country for a long period of time, West Virginia. Or now I'm getting it right.
There you
go. Ohio State. You want to have someone who understands the broad nature of an institution, because what can happen is, in fact, someone can understand the arts and sciences but not understand you also have a $2 billion enterprise called the Academic Medical Center, and that can envision that how the two of those work together rather than being separated. The second thing is that I think all too often university presidents are viewed as people who have an external role, and then there's someone who's internal. I've always viewed the university presidency as the fact that I think that if you're the leader, you set the tone from the top, including the vision and values of the institution. So I never believe that a university president ought to be Mr. or Ms. External and have someone internal. I think you have to be very engaged in the life of the institution, both internally and externally. And I think you have to have experience. I mean, West Virginia is not a place in which you can have any experience. It's a very complex institution in a very complex state, which has a lot of moving parts to it. And right now, I think coming back to the point that we made earlier about the role of the institution, you know, honestly, just sitting here for 4 days, all of a sudden, and being with the legislature and being at the State of the State last night, it's a realization that is really dawning on me that there is not a more powerful time for leadership in this state, for this university, than right now.
Mhm.
I honestly believe that. And so it's going to require someone who has that vision. And by the way, West Virginians are very proud of their institution. They don't want to have someone come in and say, you know, we did it this way at X, Y, or Z. This is their institution. They want to have someone who believes in West Virginia too.
And I might add that our board felt the very same way when we were going through the list of names, that it is probably one of the most important decisions that the university will be making for years to come. And as a result of that, we wanted a leader, number one. We also want someone who was a strong administrator, but to even administrate in WVU, you have to administrate in different divisions, and you have to administrate in different ways with each division. But because it requires that. The medical administration is totally different than the academic administration, totally different than the athletic administration.
Yeah.
So that person has to be able to touch all those bases and make those people toe the line and feel good about what they're doing. And it was very easy when I mentioned Gordon Gee, and people jumped on that because obviously Gordon has been in those positions and has administrated in different areas of expertise throughout the university system.
So I think that our driving issue right now for the university, in order for us to face forward, is the fact that I described the institution as sort of 14 or 15 colleges connected by a heating plant. What happens is the fact that institutions become very siloed. We can't afford it. We can't afford it in terms of money. We can't afford it in terms of culture. We can't afford it in terms of our ability to be able to be competitive in the world. So one of the things that the chairman and I and certainly the board are talking about is how do we move to a more integrated institution. And I think that, I mean, if that's a contribution that I can make, I think that would be at the very top end of my priority is the fact that we need to get ourselves out of these silos. Think about this. Think about if you have a magnificent medical school, which we do, and you have a College of Arts and Science, if you're not talking with each other. So the notion of the humanities and medicine has such a powerful notion in today's world. But if we're not talking with each other, we can't make those connections. So moving toward a more integrated institution, one university, as I like to call it, is going to be very important over the next short period of time.
If you, assuming you are just at the university for a limited period of time, I guess through the summer, one of the key jobs of university president is raising money. Can you reestablish the relationships that are required for that in that period of time?
So. Yeah, I hope so. First of all, fortunately, many of the donors that have been very significant donors to the institution for a long period of time are people that I've known very well. Secondly of all, I think it's incumbent on the university president. We have a new head of our foundation, and she's come in with all guns firing, and she and I are having dinner this evening, and we're going over a huge list of people that I'm going to be calling. So hold on to your wallet.
So you're probably not on that list.
Start at the top of the list.
Well, I'm coming after you, my friend. No, you know, and the nice thing about it is that I think that there's a powerful draw to this institution. That is not president dependent. It's cultivation of president, I think, and I certainly have to do that. And you know, maybe this is kind of a bold statement, but I love to raise money. I think it's such an important. I would starve to death if I were in the insurance business or something. But universities are such an important part of who we are as a nation, and private support is so incredibly important to us that we just need to work very hard at it. And the university's doing well. I think that we have a lot of momentum in that regard.
And I might add that the new donor base, who do not know Gordon, have been very proactive in comments back to me and back to other board members that they are tickled to death, number one, that Gordon was the person who's going to serve in this position, because of his ability, but not only because of what he has done, but he's brought in a new dynamic because the new donors from outside of the state of West Virginia and all over this country have stepped forward. And they started to step forward during the Jim Clemens presidency. And we had donations from Texas and California and all over the country. And I think because of that, and I think because Gordon has the ability to interact and meet with those people who want to meet him, I think it'll be a tremendous benefit. And I think they were presently pleased with the selection, and I think they're going to be more than pleased once they get a chance to meet him.
What creates donors from Texas and other states? Are they people with an existing connection that just develops?
Strong alumni, alumni base.
Okay.
You know, what has happened to West Virginia in my 30 years absence is the fact that it has increased its, not only its donor base, but its geographical sweep is much wider than it was. It has become a national university. People come from, I don't know, probably from almost all 50 states now and probably 35 or 40 countries. And when I was here, we were basically West Virginia centric with some Pennsylvania and some Baltimore and Maryland ties, which is very healthy because when one takes a look at the demographics too, as we increase the role of the university on a national scale, it's great to have people in far-flung places for the institution. But the thing that's great about this, by the way, the West Virginians are very interesting. There's a very interesting dynamic. West Virginians, whether they are born or born again like me, have a real dynamic to the state, and if given the opportunity to return, many of them want to do that, and that I think is the role of the institution. You see that in Morgantown. Many younger people, and just in my short period of time that I've run into, are there. They've gone off to Goldman Sachs or somewhere, but as soon as they found an opportunity to return, quality of life, place to live, beauty of the setting of writing, other things they want to return. So there's real attractiveness as we send people out for us to then be able to draw talent back in, and I'm very taken with that.
Does the spread of the Big 12 help to some degree?
I think so. I mean, I think so. I think having this iconic brand, which is, by the way, iconic, that I'm not talking about that, I'm talking about the WVU, it's a powerful brand. It's one of the more powerful brands in the country. I think having it seen in Texas and Oklahoma and a variety of other places just has nothing to do with how I actually think that West Virginia being a member of the Big 12 is great for West Virginia. Now there's some geographical spread here, and I just heard our basketball coach interviewed on national television, which he said that now they play 2 games in Texas rather than traveling back and forth. So academically and otherwise, I think that it's much better. And I do know this. I've talked to several of my friends who are Big 12 presidents, and they are delighted that West Virginia is in the league. They really are, because from their point of view, they take schools from the mid or the lower Midwest and Texas, and they now have a presence in on the East Coast, which West Virginia is an increasing presence. And my former colleagues in the Big Ten, obviously that was the reason that they pivoted and moved east, was to get a stronger presence through Maryland and through Rutgers, and West Virginia provides that for the Big 12 in a very powerful way.
Yeah, good point. John's telling me they're going to have to scoot soon, but if anything that you...
I mean, if you're scooting, I'm okay. I'm kind of just wondering, you only have so much time here. I wonder how you approach it. Like, what do you think is the most valuable use of your time?
Well, it's that's great. Again, a great question. But the
She was trained well at PIRE.
I think that I think it's very important to have priorities. And I've tried to set those. We tried to set them on Tuesday. We had a meeting with the senior leaders trying to talk about it. But first of all, I think the first priority is the fact that we're going to continue to move forward. We've got business to do, and we don't want to have there be any hitch or any loss in that. I think the second thing is what we did yesterday and what we're doing today, and that is to make sure that we are an established religion in Charleston. I think it's very important for us to make certain that people understand that we are here. We are not the University of Northern West Virginia. That we are West Virginia University. And by the way, for, Steve Kopp and I have talked yesterday. We've got great colleagues around the state. Marcia's doing a wonderful job. We're not in competition. We're in collaboration. If we end up doing what we did during my first tenure, which is for us to take great pleasure in blocking each other, then we'll not succeed. I intend on visiting. I committed yesterday. I'm going to Glenville State. On my way to Glenville, I'm going to stop at Fairmont. I think it's important for the president of West Virginia University to be engaged in understanding the issues that are confronted by the rest of higher education, so that we can create pathways to glory for all of us. So that's the second priority, is being very present, very engaged, and the third is to do really the thing that we started talking about, and that is take the opportunity to structurally examine how the university can be more effective and efficient. The issue for higher education and the issue for West Virginia University is how do we increase quality, and how do we do it by decreasing and moderating our costs. And universities are very good at asking, I know how to increase quality, I just throw lots of money at it, but we don't have money. No institution does. I know how to cut costs, and that is you build a Washington Monument, scream, complain, say the world's going to hell in a handbasket, do all the kinds of things. But universities have been very unwilling to ask the parallel question, that is, if we can do better here, doesn't that make us better here? And that's the question we're going to ask over the next 3 or 4 months.
One bow tie question.
Yeah.
How many blue and gold bow ties do you have?
I have a lot now. I tell you something. Until about 3 or 4 weeks ago, I had none. I was the president of Ohio State, which meant that maize and blue was beyond the pale. I would have been. And now I tell you. And by the way, I've got a lot of friends sending them to me too. I've got a whole stack of them now. I have over 1,000 active bow ties.
Wow. Can you wear the other colors now, or are you stuck with blue and gold? Not stuck with, but
Well,
do you feel that you probably should wear blue and gold?
Actually, my daughter says I must look terrific in blue and gold. So, but I have over 1,000 active bow ties, and I have another 1,000 in retirement. Actually, I'm the grandfather of 2 identical twin granddaughters who are 13. I'm making my bow ties into blankets for the 2.
Oh.
Anyway, thank you very much.
All right, well, thank you.
Good seeing you.